The Knicks bounce back with a 113-100 win on the road, but kind of home here in Brooklyn against the Nets. I'm Dexter Henry, joined by Stefan Bondy, and this was a game, Steph, where it's kind of ugly in the first half. Very tough watch for us here in the media and for the fans. But then the Knicks, they had a good second half effort. We'll get to that in a second. But Karl-Anthony Towns, he was the star offensively in this one when the Knicks needed a big offensive boost, 37 points. How encouraging was it to see this from Cat, where Knicks fans have been wanting to see him step up offensively, especially with the players they have out right now?
Yeah, very encouraging. And it was about how he did it, too. I mean, the efficiency was very high, and he didn't force any three-pointers, as he said. And listen, he's in a shooting slump. But his three-point shooting is such a threat, and throughout his career, that a guy like Nick Claxton, when he's going to come out and try to contest that three-pointer, Cat's going to blow right by him, and he's going to, get into the paint. And today he did a tremendous job either scoring in the paint or dishing it out. It was, in my opinion, I know he had a big game against Miami, but it was Cat's best performance of the season.
All right, going with Cat's best performance of the season. Definitely looked strong in this one. Now, defense here was not strong in the first half at all for the Knicks. Knicks have had a lot of defensive issues. You wrote about this, particularly in guarding the three-pointer. But in the second half of this game, they seemed to clamp down, led by Josh Hart, who was really good on the defensive end. What did you make of the Knicks' defensive effort? And is this encouraging, even though this was the Nets they played against tonight?
Yeah, I mean, that is a caveat, because I thought there were still some, especially in the first half, there were still some open three-pointers that Michael Porter Jr., for instance, just missed. So the Nets did not shoot the ball well. I think overall, though, as you said, kind of when the Knicks were able to kind of take the air out of the Nets, and they did that on the defensive end. And it was a better effort because that Orlando game was very disappointing. So today was a step forward in both Cat's offensive performance and the Knicks' defensive performance.
All right, we'll get to if they're really taking a step forward here later. I want to talk about some non-things related to this game. But you wrote about Mitchell Robinson, who did not play in this game. He was out due to an illness. But we know about the load management around Mitchell Robinson early in the season. And you and I had spoke about this, I think, before the season opener, that there was a potential you kind of alluded to that his agent or agents sometimes push for this with players in terms of the load management. What is going on here with Mitchell Robinson? Because Mike Brown has now sort of said what you alluded to before.
Yeah, he said this was in Dallas, and he kind of just revealed out of nowhere, basically, he was talking about Mitchell Robinson's load management plan, and the coach said, listen, I'm just listening to what Casey Smith, the VP of medicine in the Knicks, is saying, and his agent is involved and Mitch is involved. I thought it was interesting that he said the agent, because why would an agent be dictating, how many minutes a player plays? Like, that shouldn't be a decision an agent has agency over. But listen, it is a unique situation. Mitchell Robinson has had injuries throughout his career. He's an impending free agent. There's a lot of money on the line, and there's a priority that he gets to the end of the season healthy. And clearly, part of that plan is to not overextend him in the regular season, and the Knicks have been, and his agent have been taking a cautious approach here.
Understand that they're taking a cautious approach. Let me just sort of push against that for a second, because not what you're saying, but just push against the notion of that. Understand wanting to protect his value. He wants to secure the bag at the end of the year, but he also sort of needs to prove that he is available, right? And if you're not proving that you're available, we know he's not playing on back-to-backs right now. Doesn't that also kind of hurt his value?
I mean, listen, I think there's a reason why there's not a rush to give him an extension. He is eligible for an extension right now. There's been no more momentum or traction towards one. So, yeah, he needs to show he's, available and on the court. I think, what he's been talking about all season is if I'm there in the playoffs, then we can have a different conversation, and I hope to be there in the playoffs and performing in a positive way. We saw him a few years ago in that series against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Remember that? He just took over.
Yep.
So if that's the Mitchell Robinson that shows up in the playoffs, he is in line for a big contract. So I think that's part of the thinking and philosophy.
Yeah, and they want to get there first. I do understand that part of it. Now, Landry Shamet, obviously the tough injury against the Magic, the shoulder injury, dislocation there. What are you hearing about his injury, and how much of a concern is it? Because he's been really good for this team this year. If he is done for the season, not speculating that, and just looking at this as a possibility, if he is done for the season, how do the Knicks replace what he has given them thus far this season?
Well, I mean, first of all, we all saw it. His shoulder looked like it popped out of its socket, so that's a tough look. Right now, the Knicks are calling it a sprained shoulder, but with the caveat that they're not done with the full scope of the testing, and we'll get a clearer update later. I think it's going to come down to, hey, I had this happen last year. My shoulder was more susceptible to popping out. It did pop out. Do we now get surgery? And now I'm out for 6 months at least. And the Knicks, I'm on a non-guaranteed deal. I'm talking about this if I'm Landry Shamet. And if you're the Knicks, do you cut him? And I think the answer is yes, because you need more bodies. I mean, we're seeing how banged up they are and who they're having to play. So it is a tough spot. And you look at the free agent market, there's not really anybody out there. I heard internally, this was before Landry Shamet's injury, they are still looking for a backup point guard. And one name that did come up internally, I don't think it's going to happen, but it was just broached, was Chris Paul and the Clippers.
Wow.
Yeah. So listen, there's a lot of ties between Chris Paul and Leon Rose.
Right.
But I don't think that's going to happen. I do know it was something that was discussed internally, though.
And it's interesting, obviously, considering Chris Paul announcing that he will retire from the league at the end of the season, so that could be very interesting there. We'll talk more about that down the road. Last thing for me, Steph, you look at this Knicks schedule, you got to go back. Well, you're still on the road technically here in Brooklyn, but you're going to Charlotte. That's their last game they will play before Thanksgiving. It will be nice if the Knicks could get right defensively like we saw tonight. And then against Charlotte, how important is it that they don't play with their food through this stretch right now to end this road trip?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I call it the Eastern Conference for a reason. There are a lot of teams that you should just beat up on. And the Knicks have actually done a pretty good job doing that. They pummeled the Nets twice already. They beat the snot out of the Washington Wizards. They get the Hornets now. That's a big game they should win. So, yeah, this is a way to pad your record. And like we said, you have to get to the playoffs first. This is a way to do it. You beat on the teams you're supposed to.
Yeah, you got to do it. Beat the snot out of. Haven't heard that in quite some time.
I was going to say something else. But
good. You caught yourself.
Yeah.
Self-censoring. That is always good. Knicks with a dominant win here tonight at the Barclays Center, 113-100. Steph has to get on a flight and get to Charlotte. Happy Thanksgiving, my friends.
Thanks, man.
Glad you will be back in time for Thanksgiving. Then the Knicks are home to the Bucks on Friday night. That's Stefan Bondy. I'm Dexter Henry. We'll catch you next time.